Sharon Haskin. I will be doing an introduction to whittling for beginners. Um, Today I will show you a series of basic techniques and the types of tools that you'll be using to, to get into whittling. Um, Even something as basic as just cutting off a tree limb like juniper. Uh, you can turn it into something that is extremely beautiful. I turned this one into a walking stick. They call this a thumb stick because you place your thumb right here and you can use this piece as a way to leverage yourself up as you get out when you start to stand up. And plus it's easier to hold on to when you're doing your hikes and walking. I'll even get into some basic carving on different types of wood. This is cotton bark, and then something as simple as this. This is just off of a tree branch, just to give you some practice on how to start whittling. The first thing that I want to cover is going to be safety. I like to wear Kevlar gloves when I whittle. It's just to protect my fingers from getting cut. It doesn't prevent from accidentally poking yourself with the tip of a knife. There are gloves that are designed for poke, I guess, like a poke proof. But if you don't have a Kevlar glove, just get some leather gloves. Those will work just as well in helping and protecting your fingers. Another thing that you can use is sports tape. Usually I'll wrap that on my dominant finger. That's the one that I usually hold the knife in. So sports tape is another good product to use. This one right here is a self-adherent elastic tape. This is great to use as well to wrap your fingers. The way this works is you go ahead and wrap your fingers with it, and you apply a little bit of pressure, and when you do that, it adheres to itself. And that's another product that is great to wrap your fingers to protect them. Always get in the habit of having Band-Aids around. You can never have enough. And sometimes I'll even have some bandages, gauze nearby for cuts that are a little bit deeper. And it's always good to just have first aid supplies nearby when you're doing some whittling. Okay. On this part of the video, I'm going to talk a little bit about tools. There are different types of tools you can use for whittling. The most common that people like to go to is usually the pocket knife. The pocket knife is a great tool to use for whittling or carving. However, get in the habit of looking for pocket knives that lock for safety reasons, because you never want the knife to fall in on your fingers as you're carving. It can cause a lot of damage. So pocket knives are great, but please try and keep in mind you want to find some that are locking. Okay, and this is the set that I use for carving. I bought this kit. It actually comes with 3 knives, a piece of leather strap, which is called strop, S-T-R-O-P, and that's how you sharpen your knife. And there's usually a little compound stick that comes with it that you apply to the leather to help sharpen your knives. Another one that I use is a double-sided blade carving knife. And So these are the knives that I usually use. I've gotten into the habit of trying to keep the knives in the sheath or in the pouch that it came in for safety reasons, because they're very sharp, and I've gotten into the habit of making sure that I don't keep them out so that somebody else might end up accidentally cutting themselves. Tools that I'm going to talk about is chisels. I ended up getting just these basic chisels. They're like, I think you get the whole packet for like under $20. But the neat thing about these little chisels is you can actually use them to define details in some of the carvings that you do, because it has like different shapes to each of the tips of the chisels. But like I said, they're great for small fine details when you're carving. To you know, if you don't want to use your knife, you can actually just use the chisels to do some of your small details. So those are great, the small ones. And I got this other set, which is just a step up from the small ones that I have. And they actually are shaped a little bit bigger as far as the blades. So I've enjoyed being able to use these as well for bigger projects. And so yeah, these are just some options to whittling. You can always get yourself a set of chisels to help with details, and yeah, to further your adventure in working with wood. These are some of the other tools that will come in handy while you're whittling. This little brush right here. If you don't have a brush, a toothbrush is another one that you can use. You probably want to use a new one, just because yeah, you don't want to use an old one because that would be kind of gnarly. But what I use them for is essentially to clean off the items that I have chiseled or whittled, to get some of the chips off and to get the dust off, so then that way I can know for sure if there's details that I might have not finished cutting into, or that I need to do a better job on. So having a paintbrush or toothbrush is great for cleaning up some of the stuff that you've might have carved. My goodness, stumbled through that one. Sandpaper, that's kind of optional, because some people that whittle, they don't like to sandpaper or to smooth off some of the items that they've carved. They like being able to have that natural knife cuts for texture. So some pieces, it's you know, it might be better to have a sandpaper to help the product look a little bit nicer. So it's nice to have sandpaper or sanding block for those purposes. Saws are wonderful to have. If you come across a branch and you want to cut a section of a branch for a certain size of a piece that you want to carve, saws are great to have. This is what I usually use to do some of my cutting with. And then there's one that's a little bit smaller for smaller pieces. Say that I want to cut something as small as the size of a pencil. You can always just use a saw, you know, instead of using your knife. When I first started, I actually was using this hex saw. It's just a blade. I just wrapped it with a piece of leather and just used that to cut some of the smaller pieces of uh, wood that I was using, or that I wanted to use to carve on. So yeah, just use whatever that you can get your hands on. There's no rules to, you know, what tools you can use for cutting some of the material that you might need. These are some of the other items that I usually keep with my carving stuff. I like to be able to use the ruler because it helps me be able to take measurements of some of the piece of woods that I'll be working with. And if I end up having to make more than one character, I want to make sure that I get the same measurement per block, so then that way I can duplicate. One thing that's good is get in the habit of having a notebook to write down the measurements, write down how you went about carving one of the pieces that you might have been asked to make for somebody. So it's good to be able to have a notebook that you can refer back to for measurements. Like I said, I usually keep a lot of pencil around so that I can use it to mark off some of the areas that I'll be working on. Like I want to make sure that I have a center point for doing the head, and I want to make sure that I stay within the center of the block. So these are great guidelines for working with working on a project. You want to make sure that you have a pencil to help you. If you can't see the pencil, you can use a marker or a pen as well to do your outlines. Right. So I usually like to keep some magazines around on wood carving. The reason why is because it gives me a lot of information on how to different things that you can make. I've actually made this character, and somebody asked me if I could do this character for them as a family set. So it'll teach you like the step-by-step how to go about making the that character right there. It's like a winter hiker. He tells you like the size of block you need, and then he'll go ahead and mark it off, and then from there he'll do the step-by-step how to carve that piece, and he'll go ahead and show you all of it to the end. And while he's doing that, he'll give you instructions on how to go about carving and the tools that you need to use. And then at the end, he'll even show you how to paint it, what type of paints to use. I usually just use the acrylic crafter's paints. Here's an illustration of what the winter hiker looks like. Some people like to make a pattern of this, and they'll go ahead and glue it on to their wood piece. And if you glue it on, then you know exactly how to cut him. And then you have this on the side, and you'll know how to shape the wood so that you can carve your piece. And so that's wonderful about the wood carving book. Plus, there's informations on different types of material that you can purchase, as well as tools. Okay, I have gotten to the part where I am going to be talking about techniques. This part of the video is a little bit more exciting for me because I actually get to show you a little bit of how to use some of these tools. And one thing that I want you to remember is always get in the habit of putting on your Kevlar gloves when you start to carve. Wrap your fingers so that you don't end up cutting into them, and you'll understand the reason why I have my fingers wrapped on one side and then gloves on the other. With your non-dominant hand, that's usually the one that you usually hold your wood in, and then the dominant hand usually holds the knife. So that is the reason why I have my fingers wrapped the way I do, and then I wear the gloves. Sometimes you might feel a lot more comfortable wearing both gloves on the dominant and non-dominant hand. But I will show you that when we get to that point. Okay, the first cut that I'm going to teach you is called the push cut. The way you do that cut is you actually take your wood in your non-dominant finger or hand, and with your non-dominant thumb, you'll actually be using that to drive the knife away, and that way, that's how you get your cut. Now, how you do that is you put your knife down on the wood and you drive your thumb away with the knife. And okay, right there, I am actually cutting with the grain, and the reason why it chipped away like that is because when you cut with the grain, it is going to chip like that. So that is one thing that I'm glad that I happened to do that, so that I can show you that there is a proper cutting method with the wood. One of the things that you want to do is cut at an angle on the grain. That helps so that you don't have pieces that end up splintering away like that. Another thing is turn your wood around and then cut on the other side. And then once again, what you want to do is you want to cut across the grain. And if your knife is nice and sharp, it should be nice and smooth like this. And if it's pretty rough looking, you might want to consider sharpening up your blade, because you want to make sure that you have a nice smooth, clean cuts. Okay, number 2 is going to be the stop cut. The way you do a stop cut is you take your knife and you push it in at a 90 degrees, push it down into the wood, and put a notch into your wood just like this. And then you would take the knife at an angle, and with the same method as the push cut, you push your blade into that stop cut, and that gives you that nice little cut into the wood. If you want a deeper cut, of course, you would actually, on that same spot that you made the notch, just kind of go in a little bit deeper, and once again do another push with the knife, and then that is how you do your stop cut, and that's what that looks like. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate how to do a paring cut. A paring cut is essentially just like peeling a potato. What you do is you actually once again put the product or the wood piece into your non-dominant hand, and you actually cut towards your thumb, and you use your thumb as a way to stop that cut. That is the reason why you end up wrapping your finger, to make sure that your blade does not cut into your fingers. If you do not feel comfortable with just your finger wrap, by all means, go ahead and put on your other cutover glove or Kevlar glove, and then use that to do your paring. The only reason why I have a hard time using the knife with the paring and the Kevlar glove and the knife, It tends to slide around a lot with this type of material. If you get some that have the little rubber like dimples, those usually are really good at holding on to the handle. But this is your paring cut. You cut towards your thumb and you use your thumb to stop the cut. And that's how you do a paring cut. Okay, the next cut that I'm going to show you is called the V cut. Now on the V cut, I like to use the smaller detail knife because usually when you're doing a V cut, you're actually trying to do a little bit more along the lines of detailing or maybe carving in some letterings. Now on a V cut, what you actually do is you take the tip and you lay it down at an angle and you cut into the wood just like that. And then some people would like to try and cut into it this way, but I like to rotate the wood that I'm working on, and then I'll just go ahead and cut the other side and do another V. And then when you remove the piece, you actually have a nice little V cut. So let's go ahead and do one that's a little bit deeper. Okay. But that's a V cut. You actually cut at an angle and you essentially meet the point right where the last cut was. And that's how. Okay, the curved knife. This knife is usually good for making like spoons, cups, or bowls. I will demonstrate how this blade works. So what you do is, let me maybe wrap my thumb so then that way I don't cut into my thumb, because you actually end up using your thumb to stop the blade. So it's actually kind of like paring when you use this knife. The blade is on this side and the flat side, the opposite side is flat. I usually use my index finger to push to drive the blade. But how you use this is you actually go ahead and start paring, and you pare against your thumb, and this is how the blade works. And if you keep it nice and sharp, it actually works pretty good. So this is how you use the curved knife. They do have the knife so that if you're left-handed, it actually the cut part is on the opposite side. So they do have a left and a right for the curved knife. Hey, here I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the materials that you can start with to learn how to carve. These materials are easy to work with, easy to carve into. This right here, extremely soft. You can put your fingernail into it. This is called a balsa wood. Usually you can find those at the craft store. These are extremely easy to work with. It's like carving into butter. It's really lightweight. The next thing that I found is this is basswood, and I found this at a lumber shop. Fairly easy to work with as well. A good starter material to use when you're carving. I got this from a lumber store. They actually had a big slab of it, so I just went ahead and had them cut them into small pieces for me. If you don't have access to lumber yards or craft stores, the next thing is cottonwood bark. This actually comes off the tree, the bark of the tree. And anyway, if you carve past the outer layer, this area right here where it's red, that's extremely soft to work with. That's like working with the basswood. It's actually pretty easy to carve into. Very yeah, it's a good material to start out with. Another thing is driftwood. Driftwood is a nice material to carve into. Extremely easy to work with. The outer layer, most of the time, they're extremely soft. If it's a driftwood that's been in the water for a long time, give it time to dry all the way on the inside. This one decayed maybe only halfway, but the other half didn't. So the neat thing about this piece is the outer layer right here, it looks like the rocks, and then I carved the castles into it with various different series of doors. And then when you turn it all the way around, it actually shows what the inside of the driftwood looks like. And this part is actually hardwood. And so I just wanted to showcase what a driftwood looks like, not only on the outside, but on the inside. You can always find like just the beauty of what the driftwood can look like. But like I said, just make sure that the driftwood dries all the way out before you start carving, because sometimes if you do carving on a piece that's still wet, your driftwood will start cracking, and so a lot of the work that you put into will end up getting damaged. Hey, hardwood, extremely hard to carve. However, the thing that I like about hardwood is it actually is good at keeping its shape and the cuts that you put into them, and they're durable and you can use them for a long time. This is just like my coffee bean holder. So I made that, and this is out of walnut, I believe. And this is the piece that the walnut looks like. Pretty hard material to carve into. Pine, it's not as hard. It's actually probably a couple step down from the balsa wood and basswood. I made this little spoon using the curved knife, as well as this right here. This was my first little spoon that I made. I just wanted to see if I could make one, and so that was a fun little carve. One thing that I started making is the tools for weaving. I personalized this one for me to be able to use. So you can actually make your own style of tools when it comes to weaving. And this is made out of, I believe it's oak. And it's really hard and a nice material that you can use for making tools, or nice pieces that you want to yeah, take pride in making. Here I am going to show you some walking sticks that I worked on. This is actually juniper. Juniper is extremely beautiful. It always has like your dark piece, and then it has the light piece. I carved this all the way down past the sap, so it's not sticky anymore. So make sure if you're working with juniper, keep in mind you want to definitely cut below where the sap line is, so then that way you know, you're not giving somebody a walking stick that is going to be sticky. How I designed this one is it's got like a thumb part. They call it a thumbstick. When you're sitting down, you actually put your thumb in here, and I just grab this, and it just helps you stand up from the sitting position. I am towards the tail end of the video. I just wanted to share some of the things that I've carved. I started carving in December of 2020 during the pandemic, so I haven't been carving that long, but I do enjoy being able to learn a lot about it while I was home. This is the first carving that I did. I actually found this on YouTube, how to carve this little Indian guy. They do a step-by-step on how to carve him. I think I ended up changing his nose a little bit. On the other one, I believe they made his nose essentially standing up a lot higher, and I like this the way this one is shaped. And that's the thing about carving too. You can go ahead and personalize a lot of your carvings to what your taste is. And so anyway, this was my first carving. And then for practice, I picked up some of these little branches, and I decided to go ahead and make these little Christmas gnomes. And these little gnomes, they're pretty easy to make. You can go ahead and you know, do your own little characters with them. You can even put like a little eyelid screw at the top, put a string in it, and people can use it as an ornament. So these are really fun to work or to make, and it gives you a little bit more confidence in being able to use your knife. And if you have chisels, you can go ahead and use your chisels on these. I believe on these sets, I just ended up using the knife because I wanted to learn how to use the knife a little bit more efficiently. Right, so when I started carving, I got into carving gnomes only because they're easy to carve when you're learning at the beginning. The gnome that I started working with are the ones that have the face. They have the nose, the ears, so you can make your own little characters. I decided to go ahead and make this one a lumberjack. This branch was from a tree that fell in our backyard, and so I cut them up into small segments so I can make something out of them. And so I made it a tree trunk for him that he's working on to cut. I made this little axe, and I believe this is out of cherry wood, and it's all one piece. It's not, you know, a piece that I glued in there. So surprisingly enough, cherry wood is extremely hard to work with. It's a wonderful wood to work with if you're making things that you want to make sure that are sturdy. I made his arm a little bit too small for, you know, the person that he is. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new arm that's going to be bigger, that kind of matches this profile that I made. But anyway, gnomes. Different types of gnomes. I made this one with the big nose, the hat. This one is my gnome. I use this as my profile for a lot of the social media sites that I have. Because a lot of times, you know, the social media is very dramatic with a lot of things that are being posted. So my feeling on a lot of those is I usually stick my tongue out at them. So that's how I came up with this one. This one is my own little character that I made. So this one you won't find on the website. Carving too. I am not finished with this one. I'm still working on doing the painting. I started getting into my culture a little bit, and I wanted to do some pieces that represent our culture. So this is a Navajo girl, She has the hair bun, the dress, and the moccasins, and so I want to make things that are part of my culture to personalize them a little bit. And the neat thing too is you can make them for families, and yeah. And so I have another thing that I made is this one right here. This little gnome eating a watermelon. I have an aunt of mine, an aunt that loves watermelons. So I made this caricature for her. She doesn't know that I'm gonna give it to her yet, but yeah, he's just eating a watermelon, sitting down, enjoying himself. So that's the fun things that you can do with some of your carvings, making little characters. Okay, this is the last piece that I wanted to show you. This is the one that I was uh, talking about. That's 3 feet long and 8 feet or 8 inches wide. It's actually cotton bark. What I did is I carved a series of kivas and used the tools to like carve away the inside. Right here I used a carved knife to cut away some of this material, and then you can use the smaller chisels to carve away like another spot where the wind would actually start to shape this rock. And little tiny windows, and then like little tiny details on the kivas, the rocks, and like right here on top, I don't know if you'll be able to see it. This is like my chisels that I use, which is like the V chisel. So it cut like a little series of lines on top of the buildings. And so, you know, working with wood and carving, I mean, you can do whatever you want. Nobody can tell you how to carve. You can just put your own interpretation of your carving into a piece. And make sure when you do your carving, try and sign the piece that you've worked on. This is my signature, which is my last name is Haskin. First name is Sharon, and my middle initial is D. So that's how I ended up signing all my pieces now, which is my little signature on my wood carvings. I hope you guys enjoyed the video that I put together for you. Whittling is something that is extremely relaxing, and it's a fun hobby to get into. You can turn it into something that is more than a hobby. There are a lot of wonderful wood carvers out there that are very well known. So the possibilities of being commissioned to carve a piece for a museum or for clientels are out there. So definitely keep an open mind about the possibilities of turning this into something that could definitely be a wonderful art form and a career. Once again, I thank you for watching the video and wish you all nothing but success.